The rain started just after sunset, the kind that soaked the streets and made the city lights blur across the wet pavement. Daniel Harper had just finished locking the door of his small convenience store when he noticed two little girls standing across the street. They couldn't have been older than 7. Identical twins, wearing thin jackets that were far too light for the cold Canadian evening. They were holding hands tightly, staring around as if they were completely lost. What Daniel didn't know was that letting them stay for just one night would change his life forever, and reveal a secret about their mother that would leave him speechless. Daniel was a single father who had spent the last 5 years raising his son Ethan alone. After his wife passed away from cancer, life had become a daily struggle. Between working long hours at the store and taking care of Ethan, Daniel barely had time to breathe. But despite the hardships, he always believed in one thing his late wife used to say: kindness always finds its way back. As Daniel stepped outside, he saw the twins shivering. Cars rushed by, splashing water from the road. No parents in sight. "Hey, are you girls okay?" Daniel asked gently. The girls looked at each other before one of them spoke. We can't find our mom." Their voices trembled. Daniel's heart tightened. He looked around again, hoping to see a worried parent searching nearby, but the street was empty except for the rain. "What are your names?" he asked. "I'm Lily," the first girl said. "And I'm Lucy," the other whispered. "All right," Daniel said softly, crouching down so he wouldn't seem scary. "Do you know where you live?" Both girls shook their heads. Daniel hesitated. He knew bringing strangers home wasn't simple, but he also couldn't leave two children alone in the rain. "Come on," he said finally. "You can stay at my place tonight until we figure things out." The girls followed him quietly. When they arrived at Daniel's small apartment, Ethan looked up from the couch with curiosity. "Dad, who are they?" "They're our guests tonight," Daniel said. Ethan smiled immediately. "Cool." Daniel warmed up some soup and made sandwiches. The twins ate slowly at first, then faster, as if they hadn't eaten all day. Watching them, Daniel felt a familiar ache in his chest. They reminded him of how scared Ethan had been after losing his mother. Later that night, the twins fell asleep on the couch under warm blankets. Ethan whispered, "Dad, are they gonna be okay?" "I hope so, buddy," Daniel replied. The next morning, Daniel planned to take them to the police station to help locate their family. But before they could leave, a line of black SUVs suddenly stopped outside the apartment building. Daniel frowned and looked out the window. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area carefully. A few seconds later, there was a knock on the door. Daniel opened it cautiously. Standing there was a tall woman in an elegant coat, her eyes red from crying. Behind her stood security guards. The moment she saw the twins inside the apartment, she gasped. "Lily, Lucy." The girls jumped up and ran straight into her arms. "Mom," they cried. The woman hugged them tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I've been searching all night. I thought I lost you." Daniel felt relief wash over him. But then something unexpected happened. One of the security guards turned to Daniel and said quietly, "Sir, do you know who she is?" Daniel shook his head. The woman gently stood up, still holding the twins' hands. "My name is Victoria Bennett," she said. Daniel blinked in surprise. The name sounded familiar. Then he realized. Victoria Bennett was one of Canada's most well-known business leaders, a self-made millionaire who owned several tech companies and charities across the country. Daniel stared in disbelief. The twins' mother was a millionaire. Victoria explained what had happened. During a charity event downtown the night before, the girls had wandered away from their nanny in the crowded streets. Security searched for hours but couldn't find them. When Victoria finally tracked their location through nearby cameras, it led her to Daniel's building. She turned to him with deep gratitude in her eyes. "You took them in, even though you didn't know who they were." Daniel shrugged awkwardly. They were cold and alone. Anyone would have done the same. But Victoria shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Not everyone would." Lucy suddenly ran back to Daniel and hugged his leg. "Thank you for the soup," she said shyly. Lily added, "and the blankets." Daniel smiled. Victoria looked around the modest apartment. The worn furniture, Ethan's school drawings on the wall, the tiny kitchen. "You're raising your son alone?" she asked. Daniel nodded. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stunned him. "I run a foundation that supports families who are struggling," she said. "But last night, you supported my family." A few weeks later, Daniel received a letter. Victoria had offered to fully fund Ethan's education and help expand Daniel's small store into a larger business. At first Daniel didn't want to accept it, but Victoria told him something he would never forget. Kindness deserves to grow. Months later, Daniel's new store opened. Ethan proudly helped behind the counter, and sometimes Lily and Lucy visited with their mother. One rainy evening, Daniel stood outside the shop watching the city lights reflect on the wet street. It reminded him of the night he saw two small girls standing alone in the rain. He had only meant to help them for one night. But that single act of kindness had changed 4 families forever. And it proved something Daniel's wife had always believed. Sometimes the smallest kindness leads to the biggest miracles.